Your money doesn't buy my respect, Daniel. It just shows how mediocre you are, my mother said when I gave her $50,000 for her birthday. So I burned the check and let her take care of her own expenses. My name is Daniel, and at 25, I'm the guy my family thought would never amount to anything. Well, not all my family. My mom, Alicia, was always on my side. My dad, Hugo, is another story. To him, I was a parasite, a nobody who hadn't accomplished anything important my age. You're still living under my roof, eating my food, and with nothing to show for it, he'd say in that voice dripping with contempt. It didn't matter that I was trying to build something big for my room. To him, if you didn't have an office job or a steady paycheck, you were nobody. I wasn't lazy, I knew that much. I had a dream. Since I was little, I read stories of people who made millions without leaving their homes. Tech magnates, online entrepreneurs. They didn't need a suit or a daily commute. They just needed a computer, internet, and a good idea. That was going to be me. I didn't need to flip burgers or push papers in a soul-crushing office. I was going to succeed, and I was going to do it my way. My mom, God bless her, believed in me. Alicia was the kind of mother who would sneak you a little extra food when Dad wasn't looking, or slip you a $20 bill when you were short on cash. Daniel, I know you'll make it, she'd say with those brown eyes full of confidence. You're smart, you just need time. She worked long hours as a nurse, always coming home exhausted, but she never complained. Dad, on the other hand, was a construction foreman. He'd come home sweaty and grumpy, ready to lecture me about how I was wasting my life. At your age, I was already supporting a family, he'd growl. And what do you have? A computer and a bunch of dreams. He wasn't entirely wrong. My room was my headquarters, an old computer, a secondhand desk, and a Wi-Fi connection that dropped every few minutes. I spent my days looking for opportunities online. I tried everything: affiliate marketing, trading, even a failed attempt at being an influencer. Nothing worked. I make a few bucks here and there, but nothing to silence Dad. The more time passed, the harsher his insults became. You're a burden, he'd say, a grown man who can't even pay for his own cell phone. Mom always intervened. Hugo, leave him alone, she'd say. He's trying. Not everyone has the same path. She'd give me a small look, as if to say, keep going, Danny. I believe in you. That kept me going, even when I started to doubt myself. The truth was, the pressure was starting to get to me. I was 25. I was still living in my parents' house, a small 2-bedroom house in a forgotten suburb. The walls were thin, the carpet was stained, and the kitchen always smelled of burnt toast. I had no job, no college degree, no girlfriend. My bank account usually held about $50, and that was on a good month, but I didn't give up. I knew the internet was a gold mine if you knew where to dig. I just hadn't found the right spot. Until one random Tuesday, everything changed. I was browsing an online business forum when I came across a thread about dropshipping. I'd heard of it before, but always dismissed it as a scam. The idea was simple. You sell products online without ever touching them. You create an online store, list products, and when someone buys, you order the product from a supplier who ships it directly to the customer. You keep the difference between what the customer paid and what you paid the supplier. No inventory, no warehouse, no risk, just a laptop and some effort. I dove in head first. I spent hours researching products, suppliers, and platforms. I built a basic store using a free trial on one of those easy design platforms. My first product was a $10 cell phone charger I found on a wholesale website. I listed it for $25 with some nice photos and a compelling description, and waited. 2 days later, my first sale came through. I couldn't believe it. I placed the order with the supplier. They shipped it to the customer, and I made $15 without leaving my chair. It wasn't millions, but it was proof that this could work. I started small, selling chargers, headphones, and cheap exercise equipment. Each sale gave me a little more confidence. I reinvested every penny into better products and advertising. I learned how to target customers on social media, how to write descriptions that made people want to buy, and how to spot trends before they exploded. By the end of the first month, I'd made $500. By the end of the second, it was $2,000. It wasn't enough to move out, but it was enough to shut Dad up for a while, or so I thought. You're still playing your little computer games, he'd say dismissively, even when I showed him my PayPal balance. That's not a real job. Wait until it all comes crashing down, you'll see. Mom, on the other hand, was thrilled. Danny, I knew you could do it, she'd say, hugging me tight. You're going to be bigger than all of us. By the third month, things got serious. I started selling more expensive products. Smartwatches, portable speakers, even some fancy kitchen gadgets. I was making $10,000 a month, more than Mom and Dad made combined. I started paying the utilities, the internet bill, even the groceries. You don't have to worry about these things anymore, I told Mom one day, handing her a wad of cash for the week's expenses. Her eyes lit up, but I also noticed something else, something I couldn't quite decipher. Gratitude, sure, but maybe a touch of discomfort. Mom and Dad had always worked their butts off. Mom would get up at 5 a.m. for her hospital shifts, dealing with grumpy patients and mountains of paperwork. Dad spent his days under the sun, yelling at his crew and coming home with aching muscles and a foul mood. They'd been doing it for 30 years, and their combined salaries barely covered the mortgage, the bills, and a few small luxuries. Meanwhile, I was waking up at noon, drinking coffee in my pajamas, and making more in a week than they did in a month. I thought they'd be proud, but I started to notice a shift. My mother was starting to get envious, and that really bothered me. Envious of her own son, just because I found a way to make money without sacrificing so much. Mom started making comments. Must be nice to stay home all day, she'd say, half joking, but with a sharp edge. Dad was worse. Now you think you're hot stuff, don't you? Wait until the government comes after you, or your little business goes bust. I brushed it off. They were just adjusting, I told myself. They'd come around when they saw I was serious. By the fourth month, I was making $50,000 a month. Yes, you read that right, $50,000. I'd found a niche selling high-end camping gear. Tents, portable stoves, luxury backpacks. People were buying it like crazy, and my profit margins were insane. I buy products for $100 and sell them for $300, sometimes more. The best part, I didn't have to touch a single box. The suppliers handled everything. I was just the middleman, raking in cash from my bedroom. I decided to take a step further. I found a rental house, big, modern, with 4 bedrooms, a huge kitchen, and a backyard that looked like something out of a magazine. It was way better than the small, old house we were living in. I paid the deposit and first month's rent in cash, and then invited Mom and Dad over to see it. Mom, Dad, I want you to move in with me, I said, showing them the new house. There's plenty of room. You don't have to kill yourselves working anymore. I'll take care of everything. Mom's face hardened. We're fine where we are, Daniel, she said, her voice colder than I expected. We don't need your handouts. It's not a handout, I said, confused. I just want to make your lives easier. You've done so much for me. Dad let out a sarcastic chuckle. Done so much? You mean letting you live off us for years? Don't play the hero now. I was stunned. This wasn't how I'd pictured it. I thought they'd be happy. A new house, no bills, no early mornings. But Mom just shook her head. We're staying in our house, Daniel. You do your thing. I didn't push it. If they wanted to stay in their old, tiny house, that was their decision. I moved into the new house alone, and for a while, everything was fine. I continued paying their bills, sending them extra cash for whatever they wanted, new clothes, a dinner out, whatever. I figured they'd come around eventually. But it hurt that my mother's attitude had changed just because I was earning more than her without putting in as much effort. Then came Mom's birthday. I wanted to do something special. Mom had always been my biggest supporter, even when I had nothing. She deserved something big. I decided to give her a check for $50,000. To me, it was a drop in the ocean, but to her it could mean a new car, a vacation, or simply not worrying about money for the first time in her life. I could already picture her face when she opened the envelope. I booked a table at the best restaurant in town, a fancy place with chandeliers and waiters who folded your napkins and stood up when you went to the bathroom. I invited Mom and Dad, telling them it was a birthday celebration for Mom. Dad grumbled about spending money, but he came anyway, probably because he didn't want to miss a free meal. The night started well. We ate steak and lobster, drank wine, and even laughed a little. Mom was quieter than usual, but I attributed it to being tired. After dessert, a chocolate cake with gold flakes, because why not? I pulled out the envelope. My heart was pounding with excitement. This was going to be the moment she realized how much I appreciated her. "Mom," I said, sliding the envelope across the table, "this is for you for always believing in me, even when I was nobody. Happy birthday." She opened it, pulled out the check, and stared at it. I waited for the smile, the hug, the tears of joy. Instead, her face twisted into a grimace. "What is this?" she said, holding the check like it was a dirty rag. "Do you think I'm a beggar? That I look poor?" I froze. "No, Mom, that's not it. I just wanted—" "Shut up," she snapped, her voice so loud that people at nearby tables turned to look. "Your money doesn't buy my respect, Daniel. It just shows how mediocre you are." I felt like I'd been slapped. Dad started laughing, a cruel, mocking laugh. "Who does this lucky loser think he is?" he said loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear. "Nobody asked for your money. And how respectful." I couldn't breathe. The check was still on the table, a stupid piece of paper that was supposed to make Mom happy. Instead, it had turned into this. My hands were shaking as I picked it up. I stood up and walked over to the fireplace in the corner of the restaurant. I didn't even think. I threw it into the fire and watched it burn, the flames devouring the $50,000 like it was nothing. "If you don't need my money," I said, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me, "then take care of your own expenses." I left them sitting there. The drive home was a blur. All I could think about was Mom's words. Mediocre. After everything I'd done, everything I'd built, she still saw me as the same worthless loser. And Dad, well, he'd never believed in me, so his reaction didn't surprise me, but it still hurt. That night, I logged in my bank account and canceled all the automatic payments for my parents' house. Utilities, internet, mortgage, groceries, everything. I also stopped the weekly cash transfers I've been sending them. If they thought my money was so insignificant, then they could fend for themselves. For the next few days, I didn't hear from them. I assumed they were too proud to call. But as the end of the month approached, my phone started ringing nonstop. Mom's name flashed on the screen again and again. I didn't answer. She left voicemails, her tone softer now, almost desperate. "Daniel, we need to talk. The electric bill came, and we don't have the money. You have to help us. We're your parents." I didn't call back. She made her choice. They both had. The days after the restaurant incident were strange. I woke up each morning with a mix of anger and guilt. On the one hand, I couldn't get my mother's words out of my head. "Your money doesn't buy my respect. It just shows how mediocre you are." Mediocre. Me, who had gone from having nothing to making more money in a month than they did in a year. And then there was my dad's laughter, that cruel mockery echoing in my head. But on the other hand, a part of me wondered if I'd overreacted. Burning a $50,000 check in front of them wasn't exactly subtle. Maybe I should have handled it better. Yet, every time I checked my phone and saw Mom's messages begging for money, the guilt faded. "Daniel, please call. The mortgage is overdue." "Son, we can't pay the water bill." "What's wrong with you? We're your parents. You can't do this to us." Each message was a reminder of their hypocrisy. When I had nothing, Mom defended me. Now that I had everything, she treated me as if my success was a personal affront. And Dad, well, he never changed. He always saw me as a failure, even now that I was paying his bills. I decided to hold my ground. I canceled all the automatic payments, like I said, and I didn't respond to their messages. My new house was a paradise, spacious, bright, with an office where I could work without interruptions. My dropshipping business continued to grow. I'd expanded my catalog to luxury products, drones, action cameras, even designer jewelry. I found suppliers in Asia who offered high-quality goods at ridiculously low prices, and I was selling them to customers in the US and Europe for 10 times the cost. In my 5th month, I made $75,000. By the 6th, I crossed the $100,000 mark. It was surreal. Sometimes I'd sit in my new living room, look at my bank balance, and laugh to myself. Who was mediocre now? But it wasn't all roses. The loneliness started to weigh on me. Living in such a big house only made the silence feel bigger. I also missed talking to Mom when she'd ask me how my day was going and tell me she believed in me. I even missed arguing with Dad, because at least it meant someone was paying attention to me. Now I had no one. A week later, Mom showed up at my door. She looked disheveled, with dark circles under her eyes, and she was carrying a plastic bag with clothes. "Daniel, please," she said, her voice breaking. "We have nothing. They're going to evict us if we don't pay soon." I stared at her. "Mom, I gave you $50,000 and you rejected it. I told you it was to thank you for everything you've done for me. And you call me mediocre. Dad, call me a failure. What do you want me to do now?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I was wrong, son. I was jealous. You achieved everything so fast, and we've spent our whole lives working like crazy for next to nothing. I didn't handle it well. I'm sorry." Her words stung, but they weren't enough. "Mom, I'm sorry doesn't erase what happened. I burned that check because you didn't want my help. Now you won't have it." "Daniel, please," she begged. "We're your family. Family doesn't humiliate their own blood," I said, closing the door. That was the last time I saw her. A month later, while I was checking my sales, I got a call from an unknown number. I considered ignoring it, but I answered. It was my Aunt Clara, Mom's older sister. Her voice sounded tense. "Daniel, what's going on with your parents?" she asked bluntly. "Alicia is hysterical. She says you left them with nothing." I took a deep breath. "Aunt Clara, it's not that simple. I tried to help them, but they didn't want it. Mom humiliated me on her birthday, and Dad mocked me. I burned a $50,000 check because they didn't want it, and now they don't want my help. Let them figure it out." Clara sighed. "Look, Daniel, I'm not saying you did wrong, but they're your parents. They've done a lot for you. Don't you think you're being a little harsh?" "Harsh?" I said, feeling the anger rise. "Aunt Clara, Mom called me mediocre in front of a restaurant full of people. Dad called me a lucky loser. What am I supposed to do? Keep paying for everything while they treat me like garbage?" There was a silence on the other end of the line. "I didn't know," she finally said. "But they're in trouble, Daniel. They don't have jobs, and the bills are piling up. Alicia is living with me now, sleeping on the couch. Hugo is looking for work, but I don't know how long they can hold out." My stomach clenched. Couch. They were living with Clara? A part of me wanted to run and help them, but then I remembered the scene at the restaurant. The humiliation, the fire devouring the check. "Aunt Clara, I'm sorry, but they made their decision. I'm not going to be their ATM after that." Clara tried to reason with me, but I cut her off. "I have to go. Thanks for calling." I hung up, my heart pounding. I wasn't going to give in. Not this time. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, thinking about what Clara had said. My parents sleeping on a couch. Part of me felt guilty, but another part, the stronger part, was furious. They turned their backs on me when I needed them most. Now that I was the one with the power, they couldn't just demand that I come back and rescue them. I kept working on my business. I was making more and more money, but success wasn't filling the hole I felt. I wasn't talking to my parents, and even though I try not to think about them, sometimes I'd catch myself looking at old photos on my phone. One of Mom and me at a park when I was 10, both of us laughing as we ate ice cream. Another of Dad teaching me how to ride a bike, with that rare smile he almost never showed. Those memories stung, but the anger was still stronger. One afternoon, while I was working in my office, I got a text from my Aunt Clara. It said Mom and Dad had found jobs. Mom as a receptionist at a clinic, Dad as a security guard at a mall. They'd rented a small room in an old building, barely enough for the two of them. "I'm not asking you to help them," Clara wrote. "I just want you to know that they're struggling. Alicia regrets what she said, but she's too proud to admit it. Hugo, well, he's still Hugo. But they love you, Daniel, in their own way." I didn't reply. Update 1. Hi. It's been 4 months since I posted my story, and thanks to everyone for your comments. I received a lot of opinions, some supporting me for cutting off contact with my parents after what happened at my mom Alicia's birthday, and others telling me I was being too harsh, that at the end of the day, they're my family. Many of you wrote to me that even though my mom and dad, Hugo, treated me horribly, forgiveness could heal me more than them. I had a hard time thinking about that, but I decided to do things my way. After reading your advice, I took some time to think. I was reviewing old memories, like the times Mom defended me when Dad called me a failure or a nobody. I remembered how much she believed in me when I had nothing. And although her words at the restaurant hurt like stab wounds, I understood that maybe she was dealing with her own demons. The success I achieved with my dropshipping business, which now has me earning over $100,000 a month, made them feel small, and that led them to react badly. I don't justify it, but I understand it. So after thinking about it a lot, I did something. I transferred $50,000 to my mom's account. Yes, the same amount I burned in that check in front of her. Then I sent her a message. Hi, Mom. I hope you don't reject this money this time. I know you need it, and I hope you can find stability and peace. I love you. Sincerely, your son, Daniel. I didn't expect a reply, and I haven't received one so far. I don't know if they'll use it, if they'll reject it, or if they've even seen it, but I did my part. I'm not looking for reconciliation, at least not now. My dad still isn't talking to me, and I don't know if he ever will. Mom, well, maybe someday we can talk, but that will depend on her. For now, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I'll continue focusing on my life, my business, and building something that makes me happy. Thank you for helping me see things from another perspective. Sometimes forgiveness isn't for them, it's for yourself. Subscribe for more daily stories.